For anyone that has watched my channel regarding a video on the FV217 Badger, you probably know I have a very strong disliking and distaste towards this tier 10 collector tank destroyer. Now, why do I dislike it so much, and what has changed? Well, the Badger, I don't know, it's just the fact that it's got a really bad gun on movement dispersion, combined with really weak track wheels, and obviously it's pretty slow. When you add all those together, plus the fact that I just spent so much money on crates for this vehicle. As many of you know, when you buy something that you expect to be really good and it turns out not to be good, especially when it costs a lot of money, and then you can't refund it, you're probably having buyer's remorse. And that's definitely what I felt for a long time regarding the Badger. I think it cost me upwards of $400, maybe even more dollars to get my hands on this vehicle. And the reason behind that is that back in the day, there weren't charms to get your hands on Badger crates. So the crates would come out for, let's say, a week or so, and I'd spend $100 and then they'd go away. And then another 5 months later, the Badger crates would come back and I'd spend another $100, and I did it for 4 consecutive times until finally I got my hands on this vehicle. I was really, really bummed out because I was expecting this to really suit my playstyle. As many of you know, I love the AT-15. I love these peppering British tank destroyers, but I don't know, the Badger just never really hit it off with me. However, in today's video, we're going to be talking about not only a bit of a change in my mood towards the Badger, but as well a really weird phenomenon I've noticed when it comes to players and statistics regarding this tank. So make sure you stay tuned because you're actually going to be a little bit surprised when I bet I go over the statistics. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is my mood change in the Badger. I have hated this tank for many, many years. If you ask any of my friends, yeah, they'll hate it too. But weirdly enough, as soon as I've stopped playing Encounter only, and for the past 2 months I've playing Supremacy only, I've actually been doing weirdly well in the Badger. Now, I'm thinking it's possible because it's a lot more predictable to know where the enemy's going to go due to base captures. You can kind of drive the Badger just towards one of the bases, and you'll know that there's going to be a heavy tank on the other side. Compared to Encounter, you know, sometimes you'll play in Middleburg and you don't know where the enemy is until 80% through the battle because you've been doing Ring Around the Rosie trying to find each other. That doesn't happen in Supremacy. As soon as somebody gets into a base, you know where they're going, and it gives you a lot more knowledge in the battle very quickly to make a decision on where you're going with the Badger, and especially after its little speed boost that helps out even more repositioning. So that's one nice thing I will say about Supremacies. I think it gives me a little bit more knowledge and the ability to know where the enemy's gonna push. But with that aside, we'll break into some replays in just a moment. The first thing I want to talk about is Blitz analysis. Now this is a website I love. It shows you statistics of how certain tanks are doing compared to people's average win rate. It's actually a really good way of ranking vehicles, and we're going to be looking at highest relative win rate in tier 10. Now, relative win rate, what is it? Well, it's a pretty easy explanation. You have an average win rate. Let's say you're a 65% player. It's going to see your 65% in tier 10, and then it's going to see, okay, this is how you're doing in the Badger. You're either doing better or worse in this vehicle, and there you go. That's how the tank performs. So that's how it ranks by relative win rate. So it's a really good way to see what tanks are good for bad players, not so great players, blah, 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 blah. So that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you. If we look at 65% plus players, the Badger is nowhere in sight, not even in the list. IS-4, E50M, IS-7, keep going, keep going. There's no Badger anywhere in this list. So 65% plus players do way better than any other tank. If we go to 55 to 65% players, scrolling, oh, there's the Badger. Yeah, it's sitting right in the little green bar. Interesting, isn't it? And then if we go to 45 to 55% players and we keep looking, oh, yeah, there's the Badger. And then if we go to 0 to 45% players, which is obviously not a great bracket, well, yeah, the Badger is right up there performing just as well as the IS-7. Now that's something that really surprised me because the Badger's a slow tank, and it's not like you'd think it would do great for people that don't understand how to use its armor or angle it or really anything. But I think the reason why the Badger does so well for players that understand less about the game is down to the fact that you just can't drive into the battle as fast. I can't tell you how many times I'll watch a 30%er or a player that doesn't understand the game just YOLO right into the front line and die instantly. And because of that, you're screwed, because now you have no medium tank, and that's the end of your battle. If that same player is in a slow, immobile tank destroyer that can't die pretty quickly, let's say like a Badger or a T-95, then they're gonna survive longer, and even though they might not do as much, it's at least an alive player, while you can have somebody else do the role of a medium. I really think that's the reason why the Badger does so well for players as the skill level drops. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with not being as skilled in the game, but it was just something weird I noticed that I wanted to talk about on how the Badger does well as the skill level goes down, and it goes like that for a lot of other tanks as well. If you look at like the Concept 1B, the worse you go down the list, the Concept 1B gets further and further away. The smarter you are at the game, vehicles like the Concept and the IS-4 go up, and away. So, I got 2 helpings of gameplay here for you. I played 4 battles in the Badger, or maybe 3, I don't know exactly how many games I played in the Badger today, but I did pretty well. I think I went 75% because I lost the second game I played on Desert Sands, and I was really bummed, so I just kept playing until I got the win rate to 75%, so yeah, I must have played 4 battles in the tank, and well, you can see where the Badger is very nice, and that is completely out-trading with your opponents. While I do wish this vehicle had the DPM like it did on PC with like 4,000, because that would be so amazing. It's still pretty good. I'm running actually rammer on this vehicle, which is rare for me, but rammer on a Badger brings you up to 3,450 DPM, and it's not like you're short on, you know, premium pen. You can easily cut through most enemy armor. So in this current time, I've already taken 1,800 hit points off of the enemy team. But I've also noticed at base A that not good things are happening. Oh yeah, a lot of my teammates are not doing too well. My 907's over here, so I got 1 medium. I need to push now. Thankfully, the Badger doesn't actually feel too slow after they've buffed its mobility. It hasn't made a huge difference, but it's definitely nicer to be able to get in the position. There's the not-so-great armor, though, getting penned right in the lower plate. We're going to aim in on the VK90, and yeah, max roll into my lower plate as well. The Badger's great if you can actually hide that lower plate, but it's such a large lower plate, it's really, really hard to do. But thankfully, max roll into the 57 heavy. With that, we're already up to 3,700 damage. I mean, as I said, the DPM is great, so if you can actually use the damage per minute, you can get away with some really, really nasty things. We got the 57 heavy here, and that was a weird shot. I was trying to aim at his side, and I think I turned my tank, and it shot him in the upper plate. I mean, that was a bit of a skill issue on my part, but we'll make it up by shooting the Sheridan in the turret. There you go, breaking 4,000 damage, and we're not doing too bad, so we're just going to continue peppering the enemy. The other phenomenon I've noticed when it comes to the Badger, by the way, is that it does much better than other tank destroyers. That's one thing that is always known about heavily armored TDs. Vehicles like the 113 GFT, the Badger, and the T110E3. They do much better than vehicles like the Grill, the 183, the FV217, as it should come to no surprise, because they can actually play the role of a heavy. You're going to watch on the next battle that I'm able to completely swarm what are heavy tanks in my tank destroyer. And if the enemy team is, you know, as they normally would, using, let's say, a Grill, and I'm in the Badger, that Grill can't frontline, but I can, which means basically their team gets a tank destroyer, mine doesn't, and they lose because that Grill can't frontline where I actually can. That was just an unlucky shot. I don't even know what to say how that bounced the side of an E50M, but thankfully we've got adrenaline, and we'll slap a shell into the side of his tank for a bit of a low roll, but hey, we're already up to 4,800 damage, so that's pretty sweet. We're going to skip ahead just a little bit because, I mean, nobody wants to watch me sitting here, and we're waiting for this bat chat. Now, I was expecting the bat chat to come towards our base. That guy was also telling us Sector 4, but I have no clue what the sectors are, so I'm just kind of chilling here, and there you go. Bat chat gets spotted, easy shot in, and that's about all I do in this game. My teammate finishes him off, and there you go. So not a bad game at all. 5,300 damage in the Badger, and this is my first battle of the tank today. We blocked 1,500, we did 5,300, and pulled out a mastery, so not bad. Let's break into the second game on Port Bay. Now, funny enough, the 60 TP on that battle there in Falls Creek is also the now E3 on my battle in Port Bay. And as I was just saying, the E3 and Badger are both frontline sort of heavies. I kind of count these as heavy tanks. So what you're going to watch me do is just drive right into the front line. And because the enemy team has vehicles like the Waffenträger, 268 and the 183, none of those TDs can frontline. I mean, you could try in a 268, but it's probably not going to go very well. The Waffle actually can get away with some frontline maneuvers, weirdly enough, even though it has, like, no armor, but that's just because the Waffle is a stupid tank with ridiculous camo. Either way, we're going to be pushing up in the front line. Climbing over this road is a really nerve-wracking thing, but because my take's not very fast, I want to just get to base C as quickly as possible. So thanks to that little bit of a speed boost it has now, I'm able to get into position. Unfortunately, my E3 gets tracked, but really lucky bounce there from the Object 268, and it even gets a big ol' slap back in for 600. That is obviously one big advantage for the E3 is Alpha. But I got 10 degrees of gun depression, which is obviously going to help me out a lot when working down on this position here. Kron shoots an HE at me, which surprisingly rolls very high at 177, but right now we're just aiming on the AMX M4's weak spot. There's one shot into his hatch, and now we're going to go for another shot into his hatch. He's sitting still, so yeah, I mean, that's a really easy shot. There's another HE into the Badger. I wish Wargaming did make it so HEs didn't really deal nearly as much, but since I know I out DPM this guy like 3 times to 1, I'll just shoot him, then I'll back him the cover, and then, yeah, this guy's already down to 280 health. I'll pull back over again, load in a premium shell, and yeah, that's a full health tier 10 heavy dead, and you'll notice there are no heavies in sight. My heavies are down there for some reason. I don't really know what the heck was going on in this battle, but the simple thing to say is that a tier 10 heavy and another tier 10 heavy, although this Kron is complete dog, these two heavies are going to completely lose to what are 2 frontline tank destroyers. It showcases how aggressive TDs definitely have a massive advantage over non-frontline TDs, especially with the ever-increasing hull-down meta. Vehicles like the Type 71 that are now in test, vehicles like the 60 TP and the concept that now exist. It's just more and more a hull-down meta. Saved my E3 there, shot the guy in the track wheel, and oh boy, 183 just completely demolished his day. So we are at 3,754 damage. Not bad at all, and all we gotta do is find where this Waffenträger is, although we're pretty sure we already know where he is, at their spawn. Every single tank is alive on my team, although, again, weird maneuver from our team. I've never seen an actual team on either side go to B. I've seen teams go to C and A. I don't really know why you'd go to A, but specifically B. That is a weird push, right? Either way, not a bad battle, 4,285 damage to finish it off with, and yeah, not bad at all. So what do I have to say about my closing remarks for this video? I'm growing on the Badger. I still don't love it. There are many situations where this tank will let you down because of its mobility, or the fact that a really, really nasty, and word I don't want to say, T100 LT driver comes up behind you and ruins your day. But just the fact that the tank can actually do a couple things now because of the hull down meta, it actually doesn't feel too bad. I don't know, maybe I'm just delusional. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.